The committee will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare a recess of the committee at any time. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Good morning, and thank all of you for joining me today, especially our witnesses. This past April, the Trump administration asked Congress to pass urgent legislation to extend several key statutory deadlines for the 2020 census for about 4 months. This request was based on unprecedented delays caused by the coronavirus crisis. The president personally advocated for these extensions. He said, and I quote, "I think 120 days isn't nearly enough," end quote. The House responded quickly by passing these extensions on May 15th as part of the HEROES Act. I also introduced standalone legislation on May 27th, the Fair and Accurate Census Act, and the Senate introduced a companion bill. However, on July 28th, the Trump administration seemed to reverse course. The Commerce Department told the Census Bureau it needed to deliver data to the president by the end of the year, and the Senate has failed to act to pass the time delay. As a result, Census Bureau workers were forced to rewrite carefully considered plans over the course of a weekend. They had to cut field operations by a month, and they had to slash their data processing operations from 5 months to 3. Last week, I released an internal document. This document showing that Census Bureau officials warned the Commerce Department about how these cuts would significantly damage the 2020 census. They cautioned that, quote, and I'm quoting from this report, "eliminated activities will reduce accuracy," end quote. They highlighted that the compressed schedule, quote, "creates risk for serious errors not being discovered in the data." And they warned that these errors, quote, "may not be fixed because of the lack of time," end quote. There is strong bipartisan support for extending these deadlines in the wake of the coronavirus crisis. So why has the Trump administration seemingly gone back on this request? Why did they ask? They asked for the extension, and then why did they reverse themselves and drop it? And why can't we give the Census Bureau professionals the time that they need for an accurate and complete account of everyone? We do not have the full story, but the White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, stated that the reason for this change, and I quote, his quote is, "The Democrats just want to control the apportionment, and we are not going to let them do that," end quote. His statement seems to forget that it was the Trump administration that asked for this change in the first place, that asked for these extensions, not Democrats. It also seems to suggest that Donald Trump will not be president next year, so the administration wants to control apportionment this year while he is still in office. But there is a much bigger problem with this statement. An undercount will directly harm states and therefore people across this country, including states with large populations who vote Republican. An undercount will reduce the amount of funding these states are entitled to receive for health care, education, and transportation. Each year, we distribute over $1.5 trillion, federal trillion dollars payments to states based on census numbers. And if the numbers are not correct, then the payments to the communities are not correct or fair. This is not a theoretical risk. Today, I am releasing several staff reports showing the negative impact on states with particularly hard-to-count populations: Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Montana, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, and Utah. These states and others could be directly harmed by the president's insistence on rushing an inaccurate count by December. That's why a number of Republican senators have come out in support of extending the deadlines. Let me quote from a letter that Senator Steve Daines from Montana sent to Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer, urging them to pass legislation to extend the deadlines. He wrote, and I quote, "Given the rural nature of Montana and the additional challenges brought about by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, reverting the deadline back to September 30th, 2020, will leave tens of thousands of Montanans uncounted and underrepresented at the federal level. Nearly half of the households in the state have yet to be counted. It is critical that a full and accurate census is completed and every Montanan is counted," end quote. This should not be a partisan issue. This is a Republican senator from Montana. He supports the extensions because people from his state will lose federal funding to which they are entitled. Over $1.5 trillion is distributed every year based on census numbers and formulas to our cities and our states and to our people. On Saturday, a federal judge issued an order temporarily halting efforts to end the census early. This is good news, but we should not wait for the courts to determine the fate of the census. Last month, in this room, 4 former census directors, one of whom, John Thompson, is here with us today. They warned that we cannot have an accurate census using the current schedule. The coronavirus crisis has made that impossible. If you support full and fair funding for your state, if you support providing your constituents with health care, well-funded schools, hospitals, even roads and bridges, then you should support these extensions. They will ensure that your state is fully counted. The Senate should do what the Trump administration originally requested and what the career professionals at the Census Bureau need: pass legislation to extend these deadlines and ensure a full, fair, and accurate census for our country. Thank you for your indulgence. I will give the ranking member extra time should he require it and want it. I now want to recognize Mr. Comer, the ranking member, for his opening statement.